Outlaws in Sport Land. I'm JPC. I am the OCF, as made by you guys and gals out there. That is the Outlaw of College Football. And this is the home of the Common Joe and Common Sally, and no, even more so than all those media talking heads. And as you can see, I'm doing my show in the sideways version today. Don't really do a lot of shows like this because a lot of people say that it's just not, I don't know, they don't like the way it looks or something. So, but I'm doing it sideways today because I want to get sideways with somebody that's been holding up college football for the past 60 to 70 years, in my opinion. And that is the Rose Bowl. The Rose Bowl, back in the day, made a little elitist tie-in with the Pac-10, it's now the Pac-12, and the Big Ten back in 1946. They made it to where no other conference could play in their bowl game. They tied up these two conferences, played the first game in 1947, played that game from 1947, and they'll have you believe to 1998 when the BCS came about. So they want you to think that they were on board the whole time, but they weren't, because they really didn't come on board until the early 2000s when they realized that their teams, specifically the Big Ten, was getting left out of championship-type games. So you go back and you look at this tie-in, and if you look before 1946 when Southern teams and Midwest teams were allowed to go to the Rose Bowl, and Notre Dame was an independent and always has been independent, they were allowed to go to the Rose Bowl. They more times than not, and I'm not just saying this because I'm a Southern fan or a Southern-based fan, I'm saying it because it's a fact. All you got to do is go back and look at the record books. Most of the games that were played between Southern teams and the Pac-12 were losses for the Pac-12. And the Pac-12, in my opinion, got tired of being emasculated by teams that they thought that were inferior to them, because they've always had this elitist attitude towards the South of, well, we got tied up with the Big Ten because the Rose Bowl, we consider ourselves distinguished, and we're just too good to soil ourselves with those Southern inbreds down there. And they're always talking that crap about inbred. When in reality, if we're going to get this in check, in reality, more inbred shit takes place out west and up north. You know, a lot of the serial killers and child molesters, there's more higher rate up north and out west than there is in the south. So let's go ahead and take that stereotype down. But I think the reason why they went to that tie-in is, like I said, I think they felt emasculated. They won't admit to it. Like I said, they'll use that excuse of, oh, we were more academically inclined with the Big Ten, so that's why we decided to just play them every year in a postseason game. What does your academics have to do with sports and playing and being on the field with another team? It has absolutely nothing to do with that. It's just an excuse because you got tired of being emasculated. So let's just own that shit, Pac-12. The Big Ten, I can't out the Big Ten on that, because the Big Ten, I think they're okay with it. But the Big Ten sees this relationship they've had for so long, and it's like they have some kind of loyalty to the Rose Bowl because of this relationship. So they feel inclined to show loyalty to them, even though deep down inside the Big Ten knows the Rose Bowl is full of shit. See? So we fast forward to the 2000s, and the Rose Bowl sees that their teams are getting left out, specifically the Big Ten. And so they decide to come on board. It works out for them pretty good at first, because USC, is dominating early part of the century. Find out they're buying mansions and houses for Reggie Bush and everybody else, and they end up getting stripped of the title. And then we move on through the early 2000s into what we now have, the playoff areas. The BCS went by the wayside because they had a knee-jerk reaction to the Alabama-LSU game that was played in 2011 between those two teams. They thought, oh man, that excluded all of us. Actually, that was the first time it had ever happened, and the likelihood of it ever happening again with just two spots available was very unlikely. What you did really, in effect, when you went to 4 teams, is you allowed the SEC more access. You allowed the other conferences, Big 12, ACC, more access. So now we get to the point where they're like, all right, well, we're going to start talking about 12 teams. But then they've come to the realization that the more we open this thing up, the more spots are going to be available for these Southern teams and these Midwest teams, so it's not really helping us. We're still going to get on the field and get emasculated. So I think that they come to the realization, like, hey, we need to shoot this down, and maybe at a later date, we'll go back to doing it the way we used to do it. I think they want the whole thing to implode, to be honest with you. I think that's what the Pac-12 and the Rose Bowl want. I don't think the Big Ten really wants that, but I think the Big Ten more or less either don't realize it or they're just like indifferent about it. Because I've seen and talked to many Big Ten fans before and Pac-12 fans, and they'll tell you that they would rather play in the Rose Bowl and win the Rose Bowl than win a national championship. A lot of them will tell you that. Now, there's some that's not like that, but there's some out there that'll actually tell you that shit. Can you believe that? That's the elitist attitude they hold. See, they would rather just go back to the way it was with them two playing each other every year in the postseason, and that way one of them can at least feel like a champion of something. See, right now they can't do that because they've only had one champion out of this whole deal. This whole time in this BCS, not even BCS, but this playoff era, they've had one champion, and that's Ohio State. And that's it. The rest of them, no. Everybody's been either a Southern team or Midwest team. Most of them just Southern teams, with the outlier being Ohio State. So in my opinion, I think the Pac-12 and the Rose Bowl in particular are hedging this thing. And they're wanting, and the ACC's on board with this shit too. And I don't understand the ACC's thinking. Because if the Big Ten ends up talking Notre Dame into coming into the Big Ten one day, y'all going to be screwed. So right now they've invited you in this loosely knit alliance because they know that gives them leverage over the SEC and the other conferences that out there that they see as teams that they don't think they can compete with athletically. So they use these AAU excuses and all this academic bullshit, and academics have nothing to do with the athletics on the field. It's just an excuse. And I really think, deep down, that the Pac-12 and the Rose Bowl want it to go back the way it was. Because when it was the way it was, they could have their own little world. They remind me of that kid in the neighborhood that's not that good at sports, but has the brand new basketball goal or has the brand new football, and he starts getting emasculated and getting owned out there on the field or on the court, and so he takes his ball and he goes home. Well, that's what the Rose Bowl did for nearly 50 to 60 years with that elitist, stupid tie-in they had that they tried to base on, oh, we're academically inclined with each other. What they were inclined was they just got tired of getting their ass handed to them. And that's all I got to say about that. You guys and gals, tell me what you think. Do you think that the Rose Bowl and the Pac-12 intentionally have deep-sixed this playoff talk because they want to one day maybe implode the playoff thing altogether and go back to playing bowl tie-ins? Or do you think that maybe there's some other underlying reason? And if there is, drop it in the comment section. Tell me what you think. And with that, like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Subscriptions are most important. And as always, KMCA to all the other teams.